This is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Welcome to a more civilized podcast. This is the podcast you're looking for. You may not go about your business. Stay here, listen, and then move along.
Well, hey there, listeners. We hope you enjoyed our Tournament of Heroes bracket last week. Who saw that coming, huh? Ahsoka? What?
Oh,
that was
and you know what?
Crazy.
By the way, bone to pick real quick. I didn't realize until after we were done recording. So
It's Revenge of the Ross, listeners.
Obi-Wan lost to Leia, right? Then, the very next round, all of the arguments for Leia were completely turned against on their heads. You just wanted Leia to lose to get my goat, sir.
Oh, that's fair.
You spiteful little nerf herder.
Yeah, I am. That is accurate. Oh, I am Kyler, by the way.
I am Chris.
And I'm Ross.
Still, the angry one is
Still
Ross.
angry.
A week later,
man. Yeah, you gotta let that go.
Oh, shoot. Ross, angry Ross, take it away.
Yeah, so we have some
angry Ross, take it away.
We have some very newsy news. First and foremost is we have a little bit of clout being added to our, well, a little more clout than it already has, added to our Star Wars family. We're going to have the creators of Game of Thrones, was it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, two of the Game of Thrones.
Two of the showrunners for Game of Thrones are doing a new trilogy when Episode 9 is done.
Yep. So they had been tasked previously, like we knew that they were doing something Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But from what it sounded like in the past, it was maybe just a single movie or hadn't been specified.
Okay,
it was like
so
one of those
these
two.
guys. Okay, yeah, that's right.
It was you're doing something Star Wars, you're doing a Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. And so people were like, okay, so they're doing a movie. But that has apparently been upgraded to a trilogy. Or maybe it was a trilogy the whole time and we just weren't given that information or somebody misspoke. But yeah, the latest is that it's a trilogy now.
Now, my next comment is already defunct by the next piece of news, is that Rian Johnson is still obviously working on his Star Wars trilogy. I was wondering if maybe after what you had just said, if maybe they had flipped it. Maybe
I wish that
they were
would have been
giving
so amazing.
These guys the trilogy. But, no, yeah, Ryan confirmed on Twitter that he's still absolutely working on it. So any of the rumors otherwise...
FYI, the Game of Thrones showrunners that we're referring to are David Benioff and D.B. Weiss.
Yes.
I feel like I've heard those names before. Have they done more in Game of Thrones?
I'm not as familiar with them, but
okay.
I'll look them up sometime.
Yeah.
I'm excited though. I mean, Game of Thrones looks really good.
Yeah.
And it's got a good story, so if you take that and just port it over to Star Wars, it should be good.
And give them a larger budget?
Yep. Yeah. Give them Disney money.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this news came from Express again, and so just like they did with the piece of George Lucas news from our last episode, they're trying to spin this as, clearly Rian Johnson's trilogy has been shoved off in favor of this. So for those of you who might think that's the case, let me just point out that D.B. Weiss and David Benioff were supposed to be working on a new TV series, which was going to be, I don't remember if they had the title, but it was based on a theoretical, sorry, this popped up in front of me. A theoretical version of the United States, a modern setting where slavery was not abolished, the Civil War was not won by the Union. And that had all sorts of weird controversy attached and is not going forward at the moment, which means they suddenly got freed up. Benioff and Weiss had some free time. Meanwhile, Rian Johnson has other film projects going on because he's been for years a filmmaker producing his own projects and directing and writing all this stuff. And after Star Wars, his plan was, I've got another one lined up. So it looks to me like a pretty simple, Rian Johnson's busy with his other stuff right now. They are suddenly not busy.
Yeah.
So they got the go-ahead.
So, yep. Awesome that we're bringing in that sort of talent to the Star Wars family. And then again, as I was saying, Ryan took to Twitter to confirm that he is still working on his trilogy. And if I remember reading the tweet right, he sounded kind of surprised that people were theorizing that he wasn't working on it anymore. So I don't know if that all the rumors hadn't quite made it up the chain, but No, he thought it was funny that people thought that he wasn't going to be doing the trilogy. But he is, so there we go. And lastly, we have confirmation that there is going to be a new miniseries on Disney Plus with, to my enjoyment and Chris's not so much, it will be starring Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yep.
So, and apparently has also confirmed Ewan McGregor.
It's not officially confirmed that I was just reading through the article. It has been more or less confirmed that this mini-series, limited series is what they're calling it,
4 to
is
6
going
episodes.
on. And the speculation is pretty thick that Ewan McGregor has been very open about the fact that he is more than willing to return as Obi-Wan. Yeah. He was at the solo premiere for some reason.
Because he's a Star Wars fan.
Well, yeah, but he didn't go to the other premieres.
Wow.
And so there was speculation that it's like he was at the solo premiere in particular because there was a chance that maybe something would be announced and hasn't been yet, but who knows? But so he isn't officially attached.
Real soon, though, about a lot of this information because as of the airing of this episode, Star Wars Celebration is like right around the corner. I think this episode airs like the day before Star Wars Celebration.
Does it?
I think so. And so, or no, it's in April, excuse me, so a month out.
Yeah.
A month after this episode airs will be Star Wars Celebration. And there's supposed to be, like, all the rumors are flying that there are 1,001 major announcements going to be made at Star Wars Celebration. Which makes sense. I mean, it's Disney's con all about Star Wars, so if you're going to announce Star Wars something, it makes sense. So
I would also say that it hasn't been confirmed that Ewan's attached, but at the same time, if you were going to do any sort of Obi-Wan project right now and you didn't attach him, that would just be an utterly bizarre choice.
Yeah.
And the other item of news that I didn't write down on there that I was just going to mention that reading about was the Rotten Tomatoes has turned off early commenting on movies and such, which Rotten Tomatoes has been very vocal. They're like, no, everything's fine with our system. It's not getting gamed by anyone. But finally, the trolls managed to break them by posting all sorts of nasty sexist crap on the Brie Larson's Captain Marvel movie before it's even come out yet. And then it was that combined with the fact that Rotten Tomatoes was already getting nasty negative reviews for episode 9 before we even have a title on their site that they finally
a trailer, or the movie.
Yeah.
we
exactly.
know that the film exists, and that's it.
Yeah, we know its number.
And we know they're done filming.
It was finally enough for Rotten Tomatoes to go, all right, we cannot at this point not acknowledge that this is just people being jerks. So good job, jerks.
Yep. And that's the news.
Oh, man. So, today's episode is just so looking forward to this. So, I'm sure that many, if not all of you listeners out there, have speculated from time to time about different things in the Star Wars universe. You know, this, that, or the other thing. Who could this person be? Are they secretly doing this or that or whatever? Right? That's kind of half the fun of these fandoms, is creating your own speculations and guessing and talking amongst your friends. Well, some people, thanks to the internet, have gone real in depth with some of their fan theories, and they are rotten. They are terrible. They are just bad, just absolutely terrible. And I'm sure, like us here, that all of you have had your fair share of experience in reading and seeing or hearing about the really, truly dumb Star Wars fan theories. And I'm sure, like me, you enjoy making fun of those theories. So,
advance apologies to any listeners who have near and dear theories that we mock here.
You get no such apology from me. If you have one of these dumb theories, you deserve to be mocked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and one thing that I'm going to bring up right here is that I was talking with my sister about this. I was like, hey, what have you heard? Is there anything we don't have on our list already? And she was like, those things can be kind of subjective, you know. It's like after Force Awakens, you had tons of people shipping Rey and Kylo, and that was just a stupid, absurd thing. Now, less so after Last Jedi, and so it's like, so what is absurd may not be in the future, and but a lot of these are absurd no matter what.
Yeah, so
of course.
Well, what Chris is saying is that we don't think there are spoilers coming, but
but maybe this entire episode is about to be correct.
Yes. I'm 90% like that. That's the thing with most bad theories, is that anyone with a decent handle on writing theory can glance at these and go, that's absurd.
Yeah.
Nobody has set up anything to make that at all a fulfilling payoff. You're just pulling stuff out of your butt.
See, and this is where the historian in me comes out, right? As a historian, you're trained to read your sources, look at the evidence that the sources give you, understand the source's bias, sure, and then draw a conclusion or a theory from that. What bad historians do, and you see this all the time with undergrads in history classes, is that they say, well, this is what I would like to be true.
Yes.
Therefore, let me pull and pluck and twist evidence given in the sources to meet this theory. One of my favorite examples to bring up, when I was an undergrad, it was a medieval history class. We were reading some of the writings of Hildegard of Bingen. She was an incredibly influential nun in the Middle Ages.
It sounds like a Star Wars name.
And really a very interesting read, fascinating woman, interesting life. And then this one girl in our class just wanted continuously to insist that she was a lesbian. And I'm like, okay. I read the same
obviously
source.
Not impossible.
Not impossible, but I'm going, but I read the same material you did, and I didn't get any of that. And so this descended into like a half an hour class discussion about whether she is or is not. And I'm flipping through the pages of the document and going, I see every instance that you're citing here, but where she says that she loves these women, that she's glad for their special connections and things like that. I'm like, but you also got to remember, she's the mother superior of an abbey. For her to talk in terms of love and special connections and feelings and whatever for the other nuns in her abbey is not out of the ordinary for any abbess of that time. So could she be? Sure. But is she probably based on the evidence here given the context of the time? I don't think so. I think that's a bit of a stretch. So people, when they do that with Star Wars, I'm like, well, it's all made up anyway, but you're still wrong.
Yes. Well, for me, with most things, it's like one of the most prominent forms of bad fan theorying is shipping.
Yes.
AKA, which we actually don't really have any shipping stuff on here.
But we could talk about it.
Well, yeah,
it's
we
everywhere.
can, but
literally
shipping,
take any two characters. There's a fan theory.
Oh
out
yeah,
there
of
about
course.
it.
And shipping is relation shipping for those of you not in the know. It's basically when people are like, yeah, these two people are going to.
2 years ago, I had no idea.
These two people are going to end up together. Or in some of the more esoteric situations, these 3 or 4 or 5 people are going to end up together. Who knows? And if you're reading Wheel of Time, but
For real.
but
Good reference, Chris.
thanks. Yeah, I am chock full of them. But yeah, you get people just as, and sometimes it's this sort of like, yeah, this has been clearly set up as some sort of love triangle. These are both meant to be. But other times it's just wholly arbitrary. It's the Zutara people. Like from Avatar: The Last Airbender, you had tons and tons of people who were just obsessed with the idea that Zuko and Katara were obviously going to end up together, and it was all BS. And it was they're picking out little tiny moments and going, oh, obviously, see, this is him declaring his love for her. And it's like, no, it's not. It's like, well, clearly he has a thing. It's like, no, not clear at all. You're twisting the words to what you want it to. And then, of course, the creators of the show found out about all the Zutara shipping and went, oh, that's hilarious. Mm-hmm. Let's just start dropping stuff in there to mess with people.
Yeah.
And,
I love that.
But
trolling.
it was, even with all that stuff, it was never going to happen,
Yeah.
you know? And it's that sort of obvious. And it's a similar thing where people are taking what they want. And oftentimes it's a result of people projecting themselves onto characters and going, well, if I were Katara, I would obviously be more interested
Right.
in Zuko.
Therefore, it must be true.
Yeah,
and
therefore
this
that
and
must be
this.
what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're doing here, and it gets and shipping. I think part of the reason with the sequel series right now, there's more of that going on than ever before, and I think that's partly because in this internet age, it's a bigger thing than it ever was.
I agree.
When the prequel trilogy was coming out, let alone and of course it did happen with the original trilogy, but it was. It was limited to people writing into editorials or just talking over the water cooler, and not people who were upset that Leia chose Han over Luke when Luke was obviously the better choice at the end of episode 5.
Yep. But in any event,
Biology
it doesn't
aside.
conform with canon, and therefore I find it deeply offensive.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about it. So, one of the first fan theories that we have,
One of the most prominent
one
of
the
recent
most
theories.
prominent, for reals, is Rey is a Skywalker, Kenobi, Palpatine, Binks / insert anything else you can imagine.
Yeah.
There's a theory about it. For the love of the Force, stop it already! Rey's a nobody! Okay. I had to... I would yell louder if I could get away with it.
Yeah, so talk us through the theory.
The theories. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, we're going to read an article here from early or late 2017. So just before episode 7 came out. Right?
Or dashed everyone.
Sorry, before episode 8 came out. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And things were clarified. But this is still... I still see this pop up every now and again.
Yeah.
That she is a fill in the blank.
Yep.
So,
well, and it hasn't gone away. Even after Last Jedi going, nope, you've still got tons of people going, but that's coming from Kylo Ren, so that's not necessarily trustworthy. Right. And it's like, no. Kylo said, you already know this, and she responded, they're nobody, because she already knows this. Yep. That's the point.
Yep.
So, anyone who says Rey is anyone but Rey from nowhere...
Rey no parents.
Rey no parents.
Rey the first of her name.
Jakku is an idiot. Okay, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're finished. Okay, but
tell us how you really feel.
You know what? We should also go back and check. Like what if?
No, Ross, I will slap you.
What if?
Ross, you want to get slapped again, Ross?
No, I would hate it, but I'm just saying
it's not happening. Trust me.
Okay.
I will delve into it after all this. But
one of the most prominent theories, and probably the most popular, I think, was that she was a Skywalker.
Yes.
That she is somehow the love child of Luke plus somebody.
Probably
yeah.
Right. Yeah, probably that.
Well, we got Game of Thrones guys getting attached to this. You never know.
It's true.
So this is what the article said. Luke Skywalker. Yeah, no crap. It's probably Luke Skywalker. This is the easiest answer, given this is a story about the Skywalker family, which is precisely why it is so crucial and wonderful that she is not.
Yes.
Okay? The entire galaxy does not need to revolve on the axis of Skywalker, people.
Yep.
It is, anyway, you're... Everyone's a Skywalker. Heck, you're probably a Skywalker. We don't know exactly what happened to Luke after Return of the Jedi, other than he trained a bunch of Jedi, whom his own people, Kylo Ren, killed. Maybe he had a family before everything went bad. Okay? And this is what it comes down to. This is the crux where the historian in me goes, no. This is you pulling a theory in a way that the evidence does not support.
Yep.
What do the Jedi do, right? They are sort of self-contained. They don't form relationships in that way. Luke, at the end of Return of the Jedi, what is like the defining role of the throne room scene, right? I am a Jedi like my father. Mm-hmm. He is dead set on being a Jedi. Hook, line, and sinker all the way, both feet in the deep end, right? He is doing that, which means for Luke... and by the way, and this is going to apply to any of the theories that at least that make Rey the daughter of a good guy, is her parents in the flashback we see in Force Awakens literally leave her with Unkar Plutt.
Yep.
Which means, let's pretend Luke Skywalker then is her dad. Luke Skywalker has to go, honey, it's been fun. It's been real fun. I'm going to leave you here with at least an emotionally, if not physically, abusive being on a backwater planet with nobody else and a high chance of death. Goodbye.
Oh, and don't forget, the time period, based on her age there, the time period where this is happening is before Kylo Ren goes rogue and kills everybody. Right. Which means Luke went, oh, sorry, I gotta go teach my classes now.
Bye.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave you here. This is daycare, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which makes Luke a terrible person.
Yes.
There's the theory that she is a Solo, that she's like Ben's sister or something like that. And I'm going, hey, same thing. So you're telling me Leia and Han have to be literally the worst parents to just be like, hey, bye, honey. We're going to elevate our son to the position of Jedi Knight. We're going to give him all the training and love in the world and prominence. You get to go rot in hell in a backwater.
Yep.
What the heck, Or the theory that she's a Kenobi. And then I remember this coming out. And I was like, you realize that... Because people were like, well, what if she's, Obi-Wan's daughter? And I'm like, think about the time, people.
Obi-Wan was
think
long
about
dead
the
before
time.
She could have been conceived.
And they're like, well, she could be his granddaughter or great-granddaughter. I'm like... Again, this kind of goes back to what the Jedi are, what we know they are, and Obi-Wan is as much a Jedi as you can be.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me that he, after, he gets to Tatooine, he's like, hey there, local, let me hook up with you, get you pregnant. You know what, though? I forgot I gotta watch this kid. Bye.
Yeah.
Get out of here, don't come back. And then she gets left. Or what? Then maybe that's not it. Maybe he loved her, so then he took her himself to, it makes no sense with the Jedi code that both Luke and Obi-Wan are trying to live up to, that they would be such colossal dicks to abandon their daughter knowingly and willfully.
Well,
and not only abandon them, but leave her with someone who is at the very least emotionally abusive. And Unkar Plutt strikes me as the kind of guy who's probably physically abusive as well.
But the Obi-Wan leaving her is, it doesn't even work with the timeline.
Yeah,
like
there is
he would
a
have
huge
to,
gap.
He would have to kick out, but he would still have to have a family.
He would have had a family.
Kick that family out, who then somehow winds up on Jakku and goes, no, peace out.
Well, and for me, the thing is, like, from a storytelling perspective, it's like there's a lot of things that people could say in response to this. No. Okay, look, Obi-Wan had a family and he left them for their own good. It was an okay split between him and her. Maybe he didn't even know he had kids. And then they ended up on Jakku somehow, and they weren't the best people, whatever. And then they had a kid, and it's like, okay, look, the more explanation is required to justify this being accurate, the less likely it is to show up in the story, because these are movies and there is no time and space for extraneous explanation. The more convoluted it is, the more stuff required, the more, but wait, it's theoretically possibles are you can come up with to justify it, the less likely it is to be true. That's not how you tell a story, period, let alone in a movie with the tight time constraints you have.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's true in real life of anything. The more explanation something
it's
requires,
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor, Yeah, and then let alone in a movie where it's like, we've got to be in and out of here in 2.5 hours at the max,
Yeah.
We don't have time to be screwing around with all this.
And that's especially for the people who are still trying to claim that, clearly Rey is somebody important, even though the movie just told us she's not, is that, now we are down to one movie where we do not have time for that to happen and be emotionally fulfilling or well written. And a lot of it comes down to the people who are just like, shocking revelations and connections are what make good story. It's like, no, they're not. They're icing on the cake, but they are not good story.
Yep.
And I mean, J.J. Abrams is a competent director. He's no auteur. He's not out there blowing the minds of. He's no filmmaker's filmmaker. You know, the ones that all the filmmakers wish they could be. That's Rian Johnson. But and I'm not joking about that. Rian Johnson, when he got that job directing Star Wars for a ton of people, it was like, wait, what? Artsy weirdo Looper and the Brothers Bloom Rian Johnson is directing Star Wars?
He did Brothers Bloom?
Yeah.
I thought that was a Coen Brothers film.
They might have been. I think they wrote it, but he directed it. And
okay.
so, but anyway, it's like it was out of nowhere, and that's and obviously he's not the auteur of art. He's no Stanley Kubrick, but he was definitely more art house than he was blockbuster.
Yeah.
Whereas J.J. Abrams is blockbuster through and through. He's competent. He's not cream of the crop, but he's good. He's too competent to do that. Any of that.
Yeah. It's just bad.
Yeah.
It's bad for him all around.
It is. It does make me wonder, though, why they do hold her last name off so hard.
Maybe she doesn't have one.
Maybe she doesn't know it. Well, and I will put it forward. They set this up as a reveal. They set up the question in Force Awakens of who is Rey? Where does she come from? Especially with her focus on getting back. And how she needs to get back to her family and da-da-da-da-da. But they set that up so that they could disabuse the notion of everybody has to be a Skywalker / Kenobi / whoever.
Yeah.
The whole point of it was saying, no, heroes can come from anywhere.
Places,
this is not a dynasty. The galaxy did not spin along with tons and tons and tons of heroes and then suddenly zero in on the Skywalkers, and they and their progeny were the only important people to ever exist ever from then on forward, because that's stupid. And that's exactly what the extended universe did originally, and it was a huge problem. But that's just absurd. So this was set up as, okay, we're going to make this look like what you think it always is, and then we're going to reveal that no, that's not what we're doing. So they set it up deliberately as the question. That's why her last name was withheld. That's why they had the little vision of her being left and all of that. They raised it as a question so that they could answer it in the next movie with, no, she is no one, except to Ben Swallow.
Yeah, it's just bad. And honestly, like, she doesn't necessarily even need to have a last name. I mean, Jakku's a backwater nowheresville.
Well,
Not
and I mean,
everybody has a last name.
we've already established in one of our standalones that Han didn't have a last name that he knows of.
Right, and he's on a far more civilized world than
Yes,
she
he
is.
was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just dumb. Another dumb theory is that she's a forced pregnancy, like...
Yeah, I've seen that one.
like
Another
Anakin,
Virgins in the
so,
Force.
Yeah, which is just
Well,
stupid.
but except that she always talks about her parents plural.
Yep.
So
Right, which, again, that's part of why it makes no sense, but nonetheless, the theory is still out there because people are stupid.
yeah,
The Palpatines...
If we borrow the approach from Game of Thrones, we can call her Rey Sand from now on.
Rey Sand.
That's why Jon Snow is Jon Snow, because in the North, if you have a bastard child that doesn't have a father to inherit a name from or a mother to inherit a name from, they just become Snow. Jon Snow. And that's why he has that name. But
Sand, I love it.
in the South, they use Sand for that. So he would have been John Sand if he had been born in the South. Or, spoilers, if people had known he had been born in the South.
I hadn't heard about the
she's Rey Sand.
Palpatine. She was a Palpatine.
Yeah, this is so
thing.
great. In this one, Rey wouldn't be his daughter, but his grand or great-granddaughter, or some sort of ancestor to the Palpatine, or I guess they probably mean heir to the Palpatine lineage, not ancestor.
Yeah.
Because apparently people on the internet don't know the meaning of words.
What? Since when?
Yeah. As a Reddit thread has pointed out, Rey's naming mechanics seem to point to some sort of royal ancestry, with Rey being Spanish for king.
Ooh.
Clearly, this is proof, irrefutable proof that Rey is some sort of galactic nobility.
Yeah. It's also proof that Han Solo is obviously Chinese in descent.
Yeah.
Han, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's a very common Asian last name. Obviously.
Yeah, it's so dumb. That's honestly, the miraculous Force virgin birth is more plausible to me than Rey being galactic nobility because her name is Rey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and we obviously know that Poe is also Asian because Poe is he's actually
could be Italian.
That's
Poe
true.
River Valley.
I'm betting
Asian Italian
he
mix.
is
There we go.
he is a human panda mix though.
Yeah.
Born of the two, and FN2187 is obviously actually an android because he had a number for a name, guys. I mean, come on.
It's true. He's a robot in disguise.
That's right. Oh man,
Transformer.
there's the Transformer crossover.
And
Sorry, Jess.
Rose Tico is obviously a Spanish flower. She is a plant human hybrid.
Yep. Yeah, she was hatched from a pod.
Yep.
Yep. Exactly. Jedi or a Sith, or Jedi and Sith mix, that there's a Jedi and a Sith who had a love child, which, again, looking at the time frame, Palpatine made darn sure there were only 2 Sith at a time.
Yep.
And they both died within a few minutes of each other.
Yeah.
So...
Well, and even further then, it's like, okay, some Jedi and some Sith, how much backstory do we have to do to introduce these people? Where did they come from? How did they survive through all that? How are they significant to this story to even make it worth the effort of setting up that she is descended from the 2 of them? It's too much to fit into 3 movies, let alone 1.
Yeah, it's... and then not to mention, unless you provide additional backstory explaining why the Jedi, the good parent, wasn't around to protect their kid, so then you're going to just say that they, again, abandoned... remember, whoever you assign as Rey's parents, they have to be terrible people. Because they left their little girl on a backwater planet, an inhospitable backwater planet, with an abusive person.
Well, and in a situation where it's obvious that she is going to spend her life in one step above slavery.
Right. Yeah, and barely that.
Yeah.
Like a hair above that. So whoever her parents are, they must be terrible, awful people.
The Sith parent killed the Jedi parent.
Yeah, sure. And then go ahead and introduce all of that in one more movie.
See, my thought is, if that is the case, I mean, now this Sith has a literally ready-made Padawan. Why would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, no
Why would they
kidding.
leave it behind?
Exactly. It makes no sense no matter how you look at it.
Well, and also let's also not ignore the fact that Sith are people who are capable of feeling love. Like, why would they abandon their child? Like, even if it was a possessive, ooh, I can use this as the tool to, there's no reason for that to happen.
I just had visions of like a 4-year-old with yellow eyes.
But really, this is
Yellow
what it comes
Force
down
eyes.
to for me, is everybody that wants, at least the most prominent fan theories anyway, they want her to be part of the A-Team, or a descendant of the A-Team.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Han, Lando, Leia, Luke, one of those people needs to be in her family tree. That's what they want. And for me, it comes down to, okay, then you also have to accept that they're terrible, rotten people. And is that what you want to accept for these characters? Clearly not. You love these characters and idolize them, which is why you want Rey so desperately to be a part of their family. But for that math to work, they have to be seriously messed up people.
Yep.
It just doesn't work.
Yep. Well, and it's this weird tendency that people have, especially around Star Wars, but it happens with other properties as well. Especially any time where you continue on something using the children or younger generation of the, for after the original series, is you get this really tendency. They want this dynasty, like that. Rey is so powerful, clearly she has to be a Skywalker because only Skywalkers are allowed to be that powerful. And I'm sitting here like, is this America or not? Like, come on! Anybody can be in charge, anybody can be powerful. We're egalitarian here. America! Like, this is not coming from other places, this is from America. Anybody that wants to can be the hero. She does not need to be a Skywalker, and again, that's the whole point of the setup, is setting up that it looks like she will be, and then saying, no, this is the reveal, and that is just as important or more important than a reveal of lineage would have been.
Oh, man.
Rey no parents, or Rey filthy junk trader, if you prefer.
It's, okay. This next one is ridiculous. The next one is, I wrote in our notes, here's a dumb fan theory. Feminists crack the code to reveal misogynist message in Star Wars. It's pretty ridiculous.
I picked this one up going, is it though? Like, how much? No, there's a lot of ridiculousness going on here.
Yeah. It's so funny. So, 2 researchers published a study in the journal Fashion and Textiles. Fashion and Textiles is the name of the journal.
Yes, a very serious scholarly journal.
Yeah, clearly. Yes, offense meant to the fashion and textiles people.
I am sure they will be after us in arms.
Yeah. They examined costumes worn by Leia and Padme. Okay, throughout the prequel and original trilogy. These 2 characters might look like emblems of female empowerment because of their, power. But the study found that across the films, both characters were objectified through costume. Okay. So basically...
Basically, it says that whenever they're being powerful... Yeah, sorry about that. Whenever they're being powerful, they have costumes that are less feminizing or whatever. They're harder. They're like... It's basically making them out to be... shrewish or something was what they're getting at. I don't know what it even was.
Yeah, here's what he says. King, the lead author of the study, said, "For years, Star Wars has been praised in popular media for its portrayal of strong and independent female characters, but it has also received criticism for how Padme's and Leia's positions of power fade as their relationships evolve. We argue that this shift from women in power to subjects of the male character's affections is evident in costume and hairstyle changes throughout the films." So,
Right, and then so after that it says like because their clothing and their hair becomes softer and more pleasing for men in love scenes or in this or that or the other, which I'm like, and then they point out the Slave Leia bikini and stuff, and so I get this dual prong going on with this where I'm like, okay, first of all, we don't need a study to tell us that the Slave Leia bikini is objectifying Leia. Mm-hmm. We all know that. You don't need to do a study to show that.
Yeah, they're breaking new ground there, Copernicus.
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, let me visualize what you're talking about. We're talking about Leia in Cloud City is dressed in with her hair down. She's in softer clothing, like more dress-like clothing than she wears when she's a general earlier on in the movie. We have Leia among the Ewoks has her hair down, is dressed in a dress, And that's when she has her tender moment with Han where she's like, hold me and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, gee, maybe she's dressed in a dress with her hair down because she's in a relaxed situation where she's been sitting around an apartment in the first scenario, or where she's not on the mission and she's just been taken in by a bunch of Ewoks that are helping take care of her in the second case.
And not eating her, surprisingly.
And not eating her for some reason, yes.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe that's why she's dressed softer there than before, and then switches back into her camo gear for later when she tells Han I know, and why she was dressed in still the same clothing she'd been wearing as a general on Hoth when she and Han had their first kiss. Like,
yeah, and that's the thing for me is it's like, okay, you look at her Hoth outfit, Leia's Hoth outfit. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And then Leia when she's actively like on mission in Endor, like you said.
Yeah.
Just, it's like, I feel like it's like Louis C.K. with his maybe routine, where he's like, of course this is sexist. Of course her costume is designed to objectify and sexify her. Of course. But maybe it's easier to do combat in pants instead of a dress. Maybe. I mean, of course it's sexist, guys. Of course.
Well, and
maybe it's just easier to do combat.
Clearly, like, and again, with Padme getting her midriff torn off.
I mean, of course she's, dressing like a man on Hoth to, assert male dominance over her subordinates on Hoth. Of course.
Yeah.
But maybe she's warmer in pants and the clothes she's wearing there than she would be in a dress. Maybe.
Well, and then, you skipped Padme. Padme with the midriff getting torn off is the same thing. It's like, yes, we all know, like like we've discussed on here before, we were teenagers watching that and going, come on, really?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if teenage boys are doing that, everybody knows.
Yeah.
But it's the sort of thing where it's like, maybe Padme is wearing more form-fitting clothing later on because she's not deliberately trying to hide her identity under a mountain of fabric and makeup, like she was when we first met her, or when we first saw her at the beginning of episode 2, or even later trying to hide her pregnancy under similar clothing. Like, like the range of Padme's, like, Padme's got tons of outfits that are all gorgeous, are all spectacular, but generally speaking, it's basically either over the top holy crapness, or she's wearing a white set of pants and a shirt. Like, there's not much variance in Padme's wardrobe.
And then
otherwise.
Going back to Leia's slave outfit, it darn well is objectifying.
It's
gold
almost
bikini.
like the person who put her in.
Yeah,
that
I was just gonna say,
objectifying.
who put her in that, right? Jabba the Hutt, vile gangster, quote unquote.
Yeah. Now,
this is a man who says, you're a person of power. You think you're all this and that. You're this princess who needs to be treated with respect and dignity. I don't think so. You're my slave. Let's put you in a degrading outfit. Yes, we know it's degrading, but that's the point. It's to show you that Jabba is a jerk, that Jabba is all of those things that are wrong, which is why it's bad news that she's in there, which is why she's uncomfortable.
Now, to be fair, it's also visually very clear that the creators of that movie put her in that for the purpose of the audience being able to objectify her, which is why she's laying out there all scantily looking right at them.
But if you're cracking the code of Star Wars,
this is not a subtle
it's
code.
like, look, from a audience perspective, it makes sense because Lucas is saying, you're supposed to think less of her now. That's what Jabba's going for. But then in universe, it makes sense for it to be that way as well. Jabba's meaning to objectify her.
I will say, to be fair, that Padme's character arc of being a woman in power and then basically just becoming attached to this man and nothing else, that's a valid criticism there. That is a thing that happened. It wasn't well written. It's the prequels. They're not well written. Like, we've established this worldwide, like we all know, these are not well written. And Leia definitely does have some shades of that. Like, you have, basically the main thing with Leia is that Leia is, she's the princess, she's pretty significant, she's telling people where to go on Hoth and then gets dragged off by Han and doesn't really make any decisions for the rest of the movie on any significant scale. And then in the final movie, she, you've got General Solo who is leading this attack, and you've got General Calrissian who's leading the attack over here, and you've got the Princess General Leia who, I'll go along with Han, I guess. there is definitely something to be said for Leia having less to do there. Which is, I laughed when I read that article. I immediately went when the writer of that article was like, "Oh yeah, they're saying that these women aren't women of power because of their power." And I was like, "No, let's be clear. Padme in particular, but also Leia, is not a strong female character. She is a strong female. She is a strong woman. She is not a strong female character." When it comes to what makes a character significant and strong, she is lacking, and that is a problem. But, and so just having the fact that she has power is not of great importance if that power does not actually manifest itself in the plot properly. However, attaching that to her wardrobe and saying all of these things are evidence of this instead of just being, common sense design decisions, yeah, that's pretty dang absurd. And that's really reaching and trying to fit the facts to your hypothesis. And
Sure.
And it's funny, I hadn't heard this theory before tonight, but I just ran across an article or a video or it was something just the other day which was actually talking about kind of the opposite. The cartoons that they've been releasing
I watched
recently?
this too.
Yeah.
Is it the one I
Galaxy of
shared? Is it the
Adventures.
one I shared on?
It might have
Could
been.
be.
I think it might have been. Yeah. Where...
See, and we're going to get into this in the Mary Sue episode coming up because
we?
that's part of why I expanded what I wanted to talk about. Coming up, preview, is because I read that article and I went, okay, his points about what Disney is doing with Leia are totally valid, that Disney is taking her and Hermione Grangering her, turning her into this super, hyper, awesome, competent character at the expense of everyone around her, and it's absurd and a bad idea. However, his description of how strong and impressive Leia was in the original is utter bull. It is delusional crap that is imposing his perfect ideal of what she totally is on top of what happened here. And it's like, no, she was not a strong character. She is, and as far as her strength, preview again of what's coming up. In Order of the Stick. If you haven't read Order of the Stick, especially if you are a fan of D&D, please go read it.
It's so good.
It is wonderful. I love it. There is it's very much a parody comic where it is very self-aware and everything. And there is a point where you have one of the main character's parents. They are dealing with him left and right, his father. And his father's whole shtick is that he is, in a nutshell, is basically upset that his son is not the main hero. That someone else is the main hero. And he's constantly trying to get him to step up and be like, no, you have to be the hero. And he's like, no, my friend here's the hero, and I'm good with that. I don't need to be the hero. And so the father resorts to straight up trying to have the hero of the story killed, so that his son will have to step up and take up the hero role. And when he fails to do that and is resorted to and is stuck in a position where he's like, okay, fine, let me try and negotiate. What he offers is, here's what we'll do. I will fund a whole group of adventurers, and we'll take your friend and we'll put him in charge of them all. And so he'll be the guy in charge, strong, powerful, and he'll give you orders. But then after he gives you orders, the story can revolve around you and your group instead. Because putting people in a position of power that is not a position of relevance to the plot is a way of saying, no, see, we're totally making them just as good as the protagonists without ever making them protagonists, without ever making them as good as protagonists. And that's what happens to Leia. Leia is super hyper competent. She is Princess Leia. She is General Leia. She is in charge of everything everywhere except anything pertaining immediately to the plot. Because when it comes to the story, Leia doesn't matter in almost any degree, other than something to be rescued in the first one and someone who occasionally contributes in brief moments to what's going on. But most every significant decision is made by Luke or by Han or even by Lando, which is pretty dang progressive for the 70s. That's great. but never by her. Padme's the same problem. And that's the difference, where it's like putting someone in power and saying, they're powerful, they're a strong, powerful character, is a way of saying, well, I don't actually want to make the story about them. I don't actually want to make them significant in the same way as this white dude who's the hero. So we're going to make them obviously more powerful, but then for some reason not follow them instead. It's why people get upset about it. It's like, why is Harry even the protagonist of Harry Potter? Well, it's because the books were actually well written and focused on a diverse cast of of characters with different abilities who needed to work together in order to accomplish what they did. Whereas the movies turned her into this hyper competent, super being.
And that Hermione in Harry Potter.
Hermione in Harry Potter, in the movies. And so you got all these people going, why isn't the story just about her? Like, she's obviously the most capable person here. And you get shades of that with Leia as well, even without what Disney's doing, trying to build her up as a Hermione, is Leia is super competent. She is super capable. She's the one basically running the New Republic. She's doing this, that, and the other. And yet, for some reason, she's never the one the story is actually about. So that's what I'm saying with... We won't have to go into that in the Mary Sue episode later, but...
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm not sure this was the same thing that you posted, though.
Okay.
Because it was you have these little cartoons that are being put out where they take the audio from the movies, the original trilogy, and then have done cartoons over it.
Yep.
What they done in this case was they're empowering Leia by making...
Yeah, by making everyone around her incompetent.
In particular, Han and Luke.
Yeah, in particular, Han and Luke. And it's bad, audience. Like, if you haven't watched this, go to our Facebook group. I posted it there.
Yeah.
And you can see, like, they show the scene where they're stuck on the bridge and Luke's getting the grappling hook and she's shooting people
he's
down.
tangled up
and
in
it
it
pans,
like
and you're
Ernest,
like, so
you
she's
know.
shooting stormtroopers, and then she turns around and Luke's sitting there completely wrapped in the cord for this grappling hook, and just this helpless look of just like, oh... I don't know what happened here on his face. And then Leia rolls her eyes and it's just like, everyone around me is incompetent. And that's what this article is talking about. That's like, yeah, what Disney is doing is what they did to Hermione in the movies. They are taking strength away from all the characters around her in order to make her into this bizarrely toxic character who just is convinced that they're better than everyone else, that everyone should just get in line and do what they want. Oh, I have to do everything because nobody's as good as me. It's straight up toxic behavior, but we're supporting it because it's women being toxic instead of men, so it's okay. Mm-hmm. And it's bad. It's just bad left and right. But in that article, when he was talking about Leia, about what a good character she used to be, you get this hyper idealization where he's talking about, oh yeah, she was a good leader. You can see how, yeah, she let Han and Luke take the lead because they were the ones with the plan. Once she realized they didn't have a plan for getting out, she took the blaster and shot her way into the garbage disposal because she knew the cell block better. And I'm like, really? She knew the cell block better? In what, the time she was marched in and out? Like, seriously, there's nothing going on there that she's got some edge that they don't. She just acted when they didn't because she saw a solution. And she wasn't exactly polite about it. She wasn't a good leader about it. She was kind of a bee about it, and that's why we love her. So then they jump down there, and then he's like, and then they get out of there, and she takes the back seat and lets them lead there because she knows that they're the ones with the plan here. It's like, no, I think you're forgetting the point where she says, I don't know who you are or where you came from, but from now on, you listen to me. Like, no, she's not a good leader in that situation. She straight up tells them, get out of my way and do what I'm saying. That's always been part of her character. And the way that he's idealizing her as, oh, she was this great leader who let other people lead when they were the ones who knew how to do it because that's what she was good at, is like, no, the way you are idealizing her right now is a way that conveniently leaves her out of the men's way to do whatever they want. So you're saying, oh, she was totally perfect. She was a great leader and a great character. She's just not great enough that she ever made any decisions. She was great in ways that conveniently left her away from actually being a protagonist.
Listener, so you get the full effect of what Chris was just saying. Anytime that special voice that he was just doing happens, he was also pushing up imaginary glasses on his nose. I had to make sure the listeners understood that.
Anyway, so that's my rant about that.
It's a good
rant.
And
it's not that every female character needs to be that either, but it's like the difference between Rey and every other female character in Star Wars movies is that Rey is actually making choices that impact the plot, whereas no one else was, including Jyn Erso, which is a really weird thing. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
Jyn makes one decision that actually impacts the plot. But.
So long story short, yes, there are sexist things happening in Star Wars, but not in the way that this.
But in that article, that was definitely twisting things. It's like, oh, yes, proof of this is that.
This is my favorite thing because they clearly missed the point. This is quoting from the article directly. Commonly referred to as the slave Leia costume, her attire depicts her as a slave devoid of any power. Her role at this point is merely to provide viewing pleasure for her captor, demonstrated by her captor, that would be Jabba the Hutt, earlier enjoying a dance from another scantily clad female slave while licking his lips, and by him eventually licking Leia, which clearly they didn't watch the movie close enough, because Jabba does not lick her.
No.
Right.
He gets
sticks out his
close.
tongue,
He
yeah,
sticks out his tongue and licks his lips around from her, but he doesn't actually lick her. Leia is forced into a situation where she is an erotic being for her captor,
Yes.
intended to be physically admired without any sense of her persona. It is a stark reminder that the woman is valued for her physical body rather than her personality traits. True. All of that is true.
Yes.
And it's the bad guy doing it.
And then she murders him.
And then she murders him
with the chain
with
he
the
used,
chain
chained her
he
up
used.
with. Like,
And then what
this
so
is not
great-
subtle, folks.
Yeah.
We are not being subtle about what this movie is saying about the way she's treated.
Yeah,
this
is
is
that
not
this is
subtext,
not okay.
it's just straight up
Yeah,
text.
it's that, hey, you objectify women, you treat them like objects, this is a bad thing, and they'll kill you for it. Treat them
and they'll be
kindly.
well within their rights.
And they'll be well, and then the good guys come in, rescue her, and literally the very next scene that we see her in, she's fully clothed, not being objectified at all, and in fact is in a position of leadership again. It's the briefing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so the message is the way Jabba treated her was bad because Jabba's the bad guy. The good guys do not treat her this way.
Now,
So,
Again-
you missed the message, you dumb feminist.
as a writer, I will say that there is definitely a valid conversation to be had about, now, if you are a writer today and you're writing a scene, is what that scene is saying important enough to say it again in your story, or are you just doing that for titillation? Like, there is definitely valid, but it's like, it was made in the 70s. It is actually quite remarkably forthright. Well, that was the 80s, but it is remarkably
83,
progressive
it's
for
like
that.
70s and 80s.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like, but yes, if it's the bad guys doing it, there is at least definitely some explanation beyond what you're trying to say is going on here for what is happening.
Oh, man. This is so great. This one is just delightful. Especially because it has the wonderful clickbaity hallmarks.
Well,
Star Wars.
It's the Express again.
Yeah. Star Wars, all caps. Brilliant new theory explains all caps this confusing moment in Yoda death scene, because clearly all of us for 30 years have been deeply confused by the Yoda death scene.
Yep.
A new Star Wars fan theory could explain one part of Yoda's death scene that doesn't quite add up. In Star Wars Return of the Jedi, we see Luke by Yoda's bedside shortly before the latter passes away. Over the course of their discussion, they go over the revelation that Darth Vader is actually Luke's father. Right? We're all with me so far? And in his final breaths, Yoda reveals to Luke that, quote, there is another Skywalker, imploring Luke to, quote, pass on what you have learned. The person he's talking about is, of course, Leia. Right? That's all. We're all
Yep.
on the same page.
Still
right?
with you. Mm-hmm.
But as for Luke passing on his Force know-how to his sister, we never see it. In fact, the biggest sign we've had so far that Leia's Force sensitive was The Last Jedi, when she managed to save herself. Now, this new theory, which has been 94% upvoted on Reddit, so that obviously means it's true, could lift the lid on what's really at play when Yoda prompts Luke to realize he has a sibling.
94%. Is there a way to view downvotes versus upvotes? I think it's just a straight score.
I don't know. But
I don't think there's a
Clearly
way to
they
see
know
a
what they're
percentage.
talking about, though, Ross.
it's the
Yeah,
Express.
okay.
Ross.
Well, what I think
Why
that means
reveal
is
that Luke isn't the last Skywalker? Are we meant to believe that there is more hope for the Jedi than just Luke? Well, then why the F does Leia do F all with her Force abilities? Where's her crazy Force training? Simple, it wasn't meant to inspire hope that Luke can find Force allies. The theorist argues that Yoda just wanted to stop Luke from questioning his feelings for Leia. They added it was meant to help him realize that Leia is his sister and not a lover, so he was supposed to pass on.
Pass on, Leia. Pass over.
Yeah, pass over Leia is the theory. Where it's just like, oh yeah, and the Jedi craves not these things, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is the dumbest thing ever.
The sheer amount of really dumb jumps to conclusions here that it's just like, well, why didn't we get to see this? It's like, oh, gee, maybe because the trilogy ended.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
and not to mention, like, this article was written
Oh, yeah, this was written after
Friday,
Last Jedi.
February 22nd, 2019. So this
Really?
is over a year since Last Jedi has been out, when Yoda specifically tells Luke, remember when I told you to pass on what you have learned? I was specifically talking about not only your successes, but your failures.
Yeah.
Yoda himself clarifies what Yoda was talking about. And it is sure as crap not, don't hit on your sister, Luke.
Yeah.
Whoever this Redditor is a fetching moron. You're completely
Well, and
stupid.
even the question there is just like, why tell Luke this? It's like, gee, I don't know. Maybe he has a family member he doesn't know about. He lost the only family he ever had just a couple of years ago. And now he found out that the one remaining family member he has is the bad guy of the story. Maybe Yoda felt it was important that Luke understand that he has more family than just Vader.
Oh, I wouldn't even go that far. I would just say, wait, why would Yoda feel like saying these things? I don't know. Maybe because Yoda knows he is dying and needs to pass on as much wisdom as he can
here's a better
before
question.
he goes.
Why wouldn't Yoda tell Luke?
Right,
this?
exactly.
Why did Yoda wait this long to tell Luke?
So it's just like, yeah, man, Yoda's sitting here going, geez, you know what? I need to just spill the beans. Look, you got a sister. You need to be a Jedi. You need to pass on what you've learned so the Jedi don't die out. You got work to do, kid. Okay, go. I'm dead. Bye. Peace out. Not, hey, with my dying breath, I'm going to tell you not to hit on your sister.
Yeah.
Oh my
bad.
gosh,
Like,
you're
that is
so stupid.
And that is the thing too, where it's like you get this buildup of just years and years.
I
of
am
people
loving the rage in this
obsessing
episode,
over these
by the
things.
way.
Yeah, Ross is sitting here quietly while Tyler and I are just like Harry Potter.
I had all my rage last week.
Well, and here's a theory
man.
that suggests that Ahsoka would actually be a better hero than Luke.
You get out of my house.
Yeah, good times. But yeah, it's like you get people obsessing over these things and then digging through here for every last little speck
so
of could
dumb.
there potentially have been some secret meaning that none of us noticed all these years? No. No, there couldn't. That's pretty dumb.
Those are the theories where I just kind of have to sit back and be like, you know, I'm a homebody, but you need to get out more.
Yeah.
Like, go take a walk, man.
Oh
Seriously.
my gosh. It's so dumb. That is probably one of the dumber ones.
Well, and
on
I feel
this
like
list.
it's this sense of just like someone who's obsessed over this, really wanting to contribute somehow. You know, like, I want to find the secret, or I want to show a new facet of this, and whatever. But it's just like, if you want to contribute to this, like, make some fan art or something. I don't know. But seriously, that is not contributing. That is just dumb.
Okay, this is really great. Okay, so Screen Rant had a list of 25 fan theories.
Yeah, some of which
and
are
they
already on
labeled
the
them
list, yeah.
rejected. Some of them labeled them as real. So I want to go through some of these, and they're just so great. Okay, so number 25. This is a rejected fan theory. Are the Jedis the true villains?
No.
Yeah, it's like, well, and it basically then summarizes Luke's feelings from episode 8,
Yeah.
where he's kind of like, Jedi were problems.
Yeah.
So-
well, and it's basically like, are the Jedis the perfect heroes? No. They are flawed, but they're not villains.
Oh, and this is from
Yeah.
2019, by the way, February 2019. So it's not like
Fairly
they haven't
recent
had the
collection,
benefit
yeah.
of episode 8 to clarify this. So since the theory is basically restating Luke's feelings on the Jedi, I'm not sure why this fan theory was rejected. It's basically agreeing with Luke. Yeah, the Jedi were a problem. They're kind of the villains a little
because the
bit.
point of that movie is Luke was wrong about all this.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
So, but this one was real.
yeah, this next
one
which
was
is
real.
Just,
Okay, guys. Padme was being mind controlled.
why else would she go for Anakin with Ewan McGregor
It is
right there?
That is actually a compelling piece of evidence.
Well, first of all, because Ewan actually lives the Jedi code. Oh, but this is one of the just head scratchingly weirdest things about Star Wars fandom for me is that Star Wars fans will look at something and instead of going, it's like the answer to this is obvious. Why did she go for Anakin when Ewan was right there? Because bad writing. Because Anakin was meant to be attractive to her, but he's written horribly. She's written horribly. It's bad writing. Oh well, move on with your damn lives. But instead of moving on with their damn lives, what they do is they go, no, there must be some in-universe explanation so that everything will connect and make sense, and so we're going to come up with it. It's like, and it's the same thing you had with the original trilogy, where it's like, well, instead of just acknowledging that the writers made a mistake and that a parsec is not a unit of time, it is a unit of distance, we're going to come up with this convoluted theory that will later be made canon and then remade canon in the new canon that It's just that you had this weird convoluted course, and it was how short a distance you could make it through it that was the impressive thing about this. And that's why he said parsecs there. It's not that someone just made a mistake somewhere in the writing. And we can all just acknowledge this because this is a work of fiction. No, it has to be everything's perfect, everything lines up, and if it doesn't line up, we have to come up with a theory to demonstrate why it seems to have not been lining up, but really it was all along, everybody. See how real it is? See how good this is?
And that, I wish you guys could have seen that face, because it basically is exactly the face that a person would make while genuinely spouting this theory.
Maybe I'll post a picture and put in the
So yeah, basically this theory states that Anakin uses the ways of the Force to convince this woman to fall in love with him, and it works, sort of. Rather than simply falling in love with him, she's put into a hazy, brainwashed state that her body was trying as hard as it could to fight against. This fight drained her life force entirely in the end. That's why she lost the will to live.
And honestly, now, all of my rant, just recently finished rant aside, I feel like this is probably something that was put forward by someone making a joke. You know, where it's like, and that's a hard thing to tell with a lot of what we're doing here. Is like, this feels like someone going, "Hey guys, she was being mind controlled." That's why, and someone went, "Oh, that's hilarious," and enough people went, "That's hilarious," and just started running with it. That some people started going, "Oh, this is totally real, guys."
This is really dumb. This next one, Leia was a shield.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
this one shows up twice on this list. Actually.
Leia had an element of the Force. Many fans began to theorize that her ability to use the Force appeared in earlier in the series. There's a theory floating around the interwebs that states that she was the reason why the stormtroopers could never land a single shot. The theory explains that her need to protect everyone manifested in the form of a shield and protected the game as they escaped and fought for the good side.
Yeah, she just uses Force plot armor. Come on.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And again, it's the sort of thing where it's like, well, we're told that they are crack shots, those stormtroopers, so clearly there has to be something else going on. Yeah. It's like, we can't just go, yep, that's silly, isn't it? Move on.
Yeah.
We've got to come up with a theory.
For reals, I mean, Ross mentioned it, but it's plot armor. Guys, she's a main character, so she can't die. So
they're all main characters.
Yeah, so they're going to make it. That's the trope. That's the name of the game in all these hero stories, is the hero's gonna keep going.
Well, and they've tried to move away from the trope in media recently, where the people will get injured.
But in 1977, they weren't.
Right. You know? Everyone was completely pristine the entire time.
They were, just not in this kind of story.
Right.
This was deliberately evoking Buck Rogers and those sort of things, and that would not happen in those.
Yeah. This one,
you might get frozen in carbonite, but not.
This next one, I'm going, boy, you got to be real reaching here for this one. A rejected fan theory by Street
Yes.
Jedi mandated population control.
There's just nowhere for that to come from.
For reals.
It's literally just someone made something up about what if this happened in the past and called it a theory. That's nothing.
Jedi Council comes through the children training to join their ranks and eliminate any child that shows an affinity or ability to turn towards the dark side. Anakin was simply powerful enough to hide this and sneak by, because Anakin, as a child who knew nothing of the Force, didn't even know he had the Force, knew enough to hide the Force.
Yeah.
It's totally stupid. So then the Jedi were the true villains all along.
Yeah. And this next one, what caused that asteroid field?
Now, this one is so stupid.
The asteroid field in question here is not when they arrive at Alderaan, but Alderaan's not there, and the Millennium Falcon is
they're going to go get eaten by a space slug.
It's the odds of successfully navigating an asteroid field are blah 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 to
3,720 to 1.
Thank you, sir. I figured you would know that. And it's this asteroid field in the Hoth system, apparently in Empire Strikes Back. People apparently came up with convoluted ideas for where that asteroid field came from. Because, we're in space. It's not like there can just be asteroids. Now, granted, asteroid fields, the asteroids will not be anywhere near that close together.
Right.
So, and again, that's why. It's like, asteroid fields don't function like that. Well, we better come up with a theory about why this one did function like that.
My favorite
just
explanation,
that this is fantasy and leave it at that,
is that they give, others believe that the asteroids were made up of the remaining pieces of the test planet that would eventually lead to the Death Star. Version 1 of the star, so to speak.
So this is the remnants of Jedha.
The Jedha wasn't fully destroyed.
Yes.
But also, this is post Rogue One, and we are explicitly told in Rogue One, the very first time they ever fire the big cannon is on the Holy City of Jedha.
Yeah.
Because literally, no one has any idea if this is going to work or not. Nobody knows. Which is why Krennic is sitting there going, oh wow, this is beautiful. Like, this actually worked.
Well, and also because it was
It was actually really beautiful, yeah.
Horrifying, but beautiful.
But, it's like, guys, so maybe I thought this shouldn't have to be said, but maybe it does. If your theory directly contradicts stated facts in the films, your theory cannot be true. I'm sorry. Oh my gosh.
The next one is basically the same as Leia's shield. And then the next one I think we'll save for after we're done with this list, since that's on our list. But after that we get Obi-Wan lied about not knowing R2-D2. They don't explain in this theory why he lied about not knowing R2-D2. But of course,
there's no way old people forget things.
Yeah, or how about there's no way that this is a movie that was written 30 years before or 20 years before the one that came later that suggested he would have known R2-D2, and the people making the new one just didn't bother to line things up perfectly because that's really hard to do.
Well, and it's also not like there can't be 2 blue-trimmed R2 units in the universe.
There was only one made ever, Ross, in the history of the world.
Even still, I don't think they ever say R2's name around Obi-Wan. I mean, you can assume that might have happened at some point, but...
Let's see, I'm trying to think.
It says 3PO's name, and the fact that 3PO's around would kind of give away, I think, who R2 is.
Yeah, you'd think he would know 3PO.
Well, but he spent a lot less time with 3PO than he did with R2.
Well, and again, either way, it's... No. He doesn't recognize them because...
Obi-Wan meets 3PO in Episode 1 on Tatooine because he got built. But after Episode 2...
And the entirety of the Clone Wars.
Right, but after Episode 2, 3PO is basically Padme's droid.
But, again...
And they're not around a lot. But
enough.
Well, and frankly, look at the way Obi-Wan treats droids in the Clone Wars and in Episodes 2 and 3. He's pretty dismissive.
Just ignores them mostly. Sure.
Yeah, they are tools.
Also, to be fair, this is just a glaring plot hole that the prequels did not even attempt to cover, period.
Yeah, there's that too. But in universe, there's plenty of logical explanations for why he wouldn't remember or, what. I don't know. Yeah. The next one is, this one is actually true. Mm-hmm. Ewoks find humans delicious, or humanoids at least.
We are delicious.
We sure are. So this was a fan theory that got made canon.
Oh.
So there were so the end of Return of the Jedi, actually in the beginning of Return of the Jedi, when they first go to Endor, right, they are preparing to cook Luke and Han and Chewie as a feast to celebrate their golden god 3PO. So presumably they were going to eat them.
Yeah.
Then we see a bunch of empty Stormtrooper helmets at the end. What happened to the Stormtroopers, asks the fan theory. Well, the Ewoks ate them, answers the fan theory. Mm-hmm. This apparently gained enough popularity that in the comic book miniseries Shattered Empire, which was part of the lead up to The Force Awakens, when all that stuff was getting released, they in one of the comics it takes place, like the Shattered Empire is it starts in the middle of the Battle of Endor, when they're flying around in their ships, they're racing into the Death Star, and you have some of the groups on Endor doing stuff, whatever. And so then after, at the Ewok party, there are rather large turkey legs being passed around. And one of the guys, basically they infer, they're eating people at this party. The Ewoks are eating stormtroopers.
Yep.
So that's been... and then in the Aftermath books, they also explicitly say Ewoks were eating stormtroopers and Imperial officers. A former Imperial torturer, basically. He's an intelligence agent that defects to the rebellion after Endor. He's kind of like, okay, I can see where the losing side is now. I'm out. And he defects and he starts working for rebel intelligence. And he has PTSD because he's like, and he specifically states, I watched these Ewoks eat my friends. My friends.
And in thinking about that ending scene of the Return of the Jedi, I don't know if I could party with things that find me food.
Party and hard. Well, hey, you're on there. You're not on the short list, so you're okay.
I mean,
but the best part is you have a human rebel pilot commenting on, "Oh, this is interesting meat. It's good." What is it? Oh, I'll have another.
That's
But
a
like,
little more.
but like, if those Ewoks can just, invite you in as friends at the drop of a hat, I feel like they could do the opposite. So I would be a little nervous. I don't know
But
if I
they
can party.
wouldn't, though, because their golden god told them not to.
Oh, that's true.
Well,
So you're okay.
technically, they didn't even listen to him until he floated around.
Because he has magic, duh. Now they'll listen to
He
him.
has magic now.
Oh, this one is just stupid. I don't even want to talk about it. Vader could see all futures.
Yeah. It's like, apparently he couldn't see a future where he didn't fall to the dark side. Please, moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Will Kylo get his redemption arc? We're going to save that
Yep.
for another
Well,
episode.
and I laugh at that one because I'm like, that's not even a theory, guys. Like, we don't know what's happening. There are basically two possible ends for Kylo here.
Either he will or he won't be
yes,
redeemed.
this isn't a theory
Yeah.
that maybe he'll get a redemption arc. That's just a fact. Like, maybe he will, maybe he won't.
K2SO was the last of his kind, so basically this theory is like, because K2SO helped steal the plans to the Death Star, the Empire decided to discontinue the entire KX line of droids. Right. Because when a terrorist mounts a machine gun to a pickup, Ford ceases production of all pickups.
Yep. And because in the space of time between when a few people saw that a KX droid was working with the rebels, and then
Then
the
they got
entire
nuked from
Scarif
orbit.
facility got wiped off the face of the map, somebody got the news to someone of significance that, hey, there was a KX droid working with them. It's like,
Yeah.
come on.
It's totally stupid. It's just like, you're dumb. And again, this is one of those things, or maybe, it's like, of course this is why they discontinued it. Or maybe they made this movie like 31 years after the original trilogy.
but nevertheless stuck new stuff in there.
Yeah. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
Is Chewbacca a spy?
Yes,
I didn't even
yes,
get this
he
far.
is. Chewbacca is a spy for Jabba the Hutt.
Is that what the fan theory says?
No, the fan theory is that he
Oh.
was a spy for the rebellion the whole time, and then even before Han got pulled into working with the rebellion or something. It's pretty dumb. It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's...
It also states that in fact
possible.
Chewie is the head of the smuggling operation, and that the Millennium Falcon is actually his ship. Which, well, Solo canned that one.
Yeah. Which is why it's so dumb that they have these theories, because it's like, did you not see these movies?
Yeah,
Did you not watch
exactly.
these movies when you're making your theories? You're so stupid.
Oh, and this is the theory that Luke and Leia weren't always related.
Yeah,
no, they
that's
obviously
fact.
weren't. Okay, moving on.
Lucas just didn't
You
have
don't-
time
this isn't
or
a
money
theory, you
to
don't need to
afford a
theorize
different
about
actor,
this.
so there you go. Will Rey be the next villain? This is just... You see this come up every couple of months since, like, about 2015 when they started telling us there's this character named Rey.
Yeah.
No, I don't think she is.
No,
I mean,
no.
obviously, I guess anything's possible. Episode 9 could come out. Kylo could go to the light side. Rey could go to the dark side. I guess that's possible. But based on the
But
evidence
not
we
within
have...
the confines of good writing.
right.
There is not time to pull that off in one movie.
And that's what I'm saying is, based on the evidence we have, both in universe and in the real world, it's so unlikely to just be impossible. This is not going to happen. Stop being stupid.
Now, there is still the question of whether or not Kylo's which way he's going.
Sure,
That's
but Rey
something
is
that
not
can be debated,
going
but
to
yeah.
go around.
But there is no debate about Rey. Yeah, no.
Vader did not know about Leia. Yeah, that's a dumb theory because we're told in the movies that he did not know
Yeah, we
about her.
know that he didn't. Like, seriously, this theory states that Darth Vader had no idea he even had a daughter until he read the information in Luke's mind. Yeah. Nada.
Yeah. Vader was throne room on the Death Star years old when he learned that.
Yeah.
As stated in Return of the Jedi 30-something years ago.
Yes.
So, stop it. Who is Snoke? Oh, good heavens.
Okay.
Or is this one on there later
It
as well?
is, but we
talk
can
about
do
it
it,
now.
yeah. Okay.
Literally, draw a Star Wars name out of a hat. I guarantee you there's a theory about Snoke being that person.
Carrie's favorite is that Snoke is actually Jocasta Nu.
Oh, I love it. I accept it.
Okay.
No, I've seen so many things. He's a Palpatine clone.
Yeah.
He's Ezra Bridger. He's
Yeah. Which is like things like Bridger, it's like, no, they're not going to they're not going to make this central character secretly a character from the TV show that would be a reveal that 95% of the audience doesn't recognize. It's a thing that a lot of people who are fans of the entire extended universe don't seem to understand, is that they are the minority of Star Wars movie fans. And therefore, the movies cannot and will not pull. Well, and I said that until Solo happened, and well, blah. but they generally speaking cannot and will not just pull stuff wholesale from the shows, because it will make no sense to 95% of their audience who are the money makers for them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's great that you're spending lots of money on Star Wars things, but the amount of money you yourself have spent on Star Wars is a drop in the water compared to the amount of money they're going to make off of all these other people. So they will please them first and you second. Tough luck.
Yep.
It's tough to be a fan, I guess. But the thing, okay, so Snoke was looking at episodes 7 and 8 together now. It is pretty clear that Snoke was never meant to be a reveal. Compare Snoke to the question of Rey's parents in episode 7. Episode 7 deliberately sets this up as a question with no last name for Rey, little vision of her getting abandoned, people asking her about her family, her bringing up her family, but never actually giving any specifics. This was deliberately set up as a mystery that needs answering later. Snoke was not. He's just the guy in charge of the First Order. There was never any question of, oh, it's Snoke, but where did Snoke come from? There's never any question. There's nothing set on a shelf somewhere to raise the question of, well, what about this or what about this? He's just the bad guy. That's it. Like, and you know, for further reference, it's like jump back to the days of the original trilogy being released. It's like when that first movie came out, nobody looked at Han Solo and wondered, but who is he? But where did he come from? Now, obviously, apparently enough people thought that that was significant to make an entire movie about it now, and it wasn't the best idea ever. And again, it barely even answered anything on that front. But you know, you didn't need to know. We didn't need to know Lando's backstory after having watched the original trilogy. We didn't need to know who Han was. We didn't need to know. In fact, that was part of why it caught people so off guard that Vader was actually Luke's father, is because we didn't need to know who Vader was. We'd already been told.
Yeah, Vader
he's an
was
ex-Jedi. He's an ex-Jedi who turned to the dark side and became a bad guy. Period. Done. End of story. Mm-hmm. Where did Luke come from? Well, his dad was a Jedi who got killed by Darth Vader. Period. End of story. We don't need more explanation than that. And that was par for the course until Star Wars came around and effed everything up for everybody forever. And I love Star Wars to death. I love that reveal to death. I love everything it did. But man, did it change the face of how we tell epic action escapist stories, that now suddenly everything has to be significant. There has to be some sort of reveal about who someone is or where they're from or what is going on here. And that never used to be. Like, of course there were reveals like that. Of course people did discover things about themselves, but it wasn't this ubiquitous, it has to happen everywhere with everyone.
Now and that's you go part into a movie looking for it. You go, okay, this is going to happen, where is it?
Yeah, and that's part of what leads people to go, well, Snoke has to be someone significant. He has to have ties to something else, because that's what Star Wars does. It reveals things we're looking for. We're going to be the ones that catch it, because we know it all so well, and we're so smart, and we're going to feel really proud of ourselves when we find it. And yeah, I mean, I was also caught off guard and somewhat let down when it was like, oh, he's just a bad guy and not even the bad guy. Okay, like, it was very jarring, and I get why people are bothered by that. But at the same time, if you look at the storytelling going on, you can see that, oh, well, they were clearly never setting this up as a question that we were meant to ask ourselves. It's just that people started asking themselves that because they are obsessive. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So Snoke did not need to be anyone. He's just the bad guy. Until before we had the prequels, Sheev Palpatine wasn't even Sheev Palpatine. He was just the Emperor. And he was just the bad guy.
Yeah.
And he was great as that, yeah. But he did not need to be more than that. We did not need an in-depth backstory on where the Emperor came from. He's just the Emperor. He's evil. He's in charge of an evil empire. Cool, done, end of story. Because this story does not hinge around anything personal to the Empire. It hinges around Vader and Luke.
Yep. I'm going to skip the next one because we're going to talk about that in a future episode.
Okay.
But the next one we're going to talk about today is Hux will change sides. I doubt that very much.
No.
He seems pretty... I look at it like this, right? Vader, were it not for Luke, Vader would have died a dyed-in-the-black Imperial man. Yeah. If it weren't for Luke. Mm-hmm. He would have gone to his grave singing the Emperor's praises and killing everybody in his sight, right?
Yeah.
Luke goes in to redeem him. And he only gets redeemed because Luke has a special connection, right? Luke's his son. So there's this, oh my gosh, I have a son, I have a family, blah, blah, blah. Okay. There's nobody to do that for Hux.
No.
Hux is a firm believer in the First Order. He's been brainwashed since he was a kid. That is canon. And there is no one to come in and be like, oh, but Hux, come on, make good choices, you know. Remember who you are and what you stand for.
And again, it's the, in order for Hux to have a believable turn to the good side, there is a mountain of effort that would have to go into developing any sort of emotional attachment between him and anyone else.
It would basically have to be the only thing done in the next movie.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you could potentially go for some sort of like, oh crap, we're losing. I'm gonna
self-serving.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull a Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, and I'm gonna switch sides here, not because it means anything to me, but because I'm a horrible person who doesn't care about any of this. But that's the thing. Hux does care. Hux is a zealot. Like Hux is not just in this because whatever, I can profit off of this.
Right. He's in it because he's a believer.
Yeah, he is. And so in order for him to swap, he has to believe about his swapping. Otherwise, he will go down with this ship, and there's not enough time to make him believe that.
The theory basically says he hates Kylo so much that he would switch sides. And I'm going, he does hate Kylo, yes. Absolutely. But he would not switch sides. He would work to remove Kylo so that he can be in charge like he believes he should be.
I could even see him under some bizarre circumstances. You could maybe pull off a plot where he reaches out to the Resistance in order to use
Kylo.
Them against
Kylo.
Kylo.
I could see that.
And even that would be a stretch to fit into.
But it would be more of a stretch than him just saying, let's get a bunch of stormtroopers together and go storm the castle, guys.
Yeah.
That would be more Hux.
Yeah, but really, I mean, it's from a storytelling perspective, it's pretty clear that Hux exists at this point to be a threat to Kylo.
Yeah,
but you know what? You propose a good theory there, though. At least for where Episode 9 has to go. How do you get a little rebellion to topple an empire? Having an empire that's already toppling itself.
Oh well, yeah,
would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but on the other hand, like if you look at the Nazis during World War II, they were constantly at each other's throats. Like they were a mess.
Yeah.
And it did. That's the scary thing about them is they don't have to be competent. They just have to be there and pushing forward.
Yeah. So this next theory, Han Solo knew what was going to happen to him, like when he went to go talk to Ben, right?
Yeah,
and he knew he was going to die. That's not really so much of a theory as pretty much stated in the movie.
I mean, like implied, I'd say.
I think,
but
he very least knew it was a possibility.
Yeah, he knew he was walking into dangerous waters and was willing to do so anyway for his son.
I'll just say this. I wasn't all that surprised.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I knew. I walked into Episode 7 knowing Han Solo was a dead man.
We all knew, we've been involved with this a while. We knew that Harrison Ford always wanted Han to die. He never wanted to play Han again. So the odds were good just going in that if Harrison Ford came back to play Han Solo again, it was so that he could get killed.
And I was surprised at the time, but in thinking about it, I was like,
I was surprised they had his son murder him.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome.
I thought it was too. I loved it, but...
No, the second that they said that Solo, this is Ben Solo, I was like, oh, yep, he's going to kill his dad. Like, the first viewing, I knew it was going to happen. This next one, I just want to read their entire speculation on the fan theory before I rage, okay? The most classically debated theory within the entire series. Who shot first in that cantina? Was it Han or was it Greedo? Some people believe that Greedo shot first, which justified Han retaliating and eliminating him. Others believe that Han shot first because if he hadn't, he would not have survived the interaction, as well as him being able to sense the direction things were going. And some believe that they shot at the same time, but Greedo missed. Han landed his shot, and it really does not matter who drew first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're an idiot. A raging moron.
Seriously, who wrote this article?
I don't know, but they should be fired.
Well, and looking at what they're confirming and what they're saying aren't real, I feel like it's exactly opposite of what it should be.
Well, and I'm just kind of like, this isn't a classically debated theory about what happened. We all have eyes. Yes. Many of these fans have minutely combed these things frame by frame.
And there's only one answer. Should we all say it at the same time? 1, 2, 3. Han shot first.
But it's like, this isn't a theory about what happens. Han shot first. Then for some reason, George Lucas decided, we're going to change everything. We're going to digitally alter this in a really awkward way.
Yeah, poorly done.
It's not that there's a question about who shot first. It's that somebody literally went in and changed the film.
Yeah.
This isn't a theory.
Well, and the dumb thing is, too, this last one, that they shot at the same time, but it's like, in either version, there is clearly one shot being fired and then another one.
Yeah.
Like, there's not in any version that exists in this version of reality is there a shooting at the same time version. So if that's what you think, you're an idiot. Kylo and Rey are related. That's kind of, we already talked about that. They're not. Rey is a nobody. Kylo is a swallow. That's just all there is to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
No.
I got that one. I got
Ross is punning for us.
That's
This is
me.
great.
You're
Ross,
doing
high
it,
five.
Peter.
Who was Luke's true father? Wow.
Yeah.
Zoe, Luke's father, is Vader.
Apparently Zoe wrote this. Zoe,
do you
you're
even
not
know
very
anything
right.
about Star Wars? And yes, I do know that Vader is his father. That is common knowledge. However, it is important to note that it is not always common knowledge, and that before the huge twist was revealed, everyone was trying to figure out where...
Yeah, again, this is not a theory. Maybe there were theorizing about this
You're
before
just stupid.
episode 5 came out. But really, no, because, like, as we've discussed, it wasn't really this big thing. It was, oh, he's the son of some Jedi. Cool.
Yeah.
Moving on. It wasn't.
So, Zoe, this is a terribly written article. Whatever you got paid to write it, you should donate to charity because you don't deserve the money that you were paid.
Donate to us because we could write the better.
That's right. Hey,
That we can write better.
hire us to write your Star
Yeah.
Wars articles.
Vader never meant to hurt anyone.
Boo.
You're not kidding. This is...
Except
wow.
those younglings. He took great delight in them.
Yeah. This theory explains that Vader did not mean to hurt anyone at any point in this series, and that he was simply too weak to continue to fight off the evil force that was flowing through him, which forced him to do awful things.
But
Yeah. Some believe that the force had taken over
in
his
Zoe's
body. and
defense,
was
she did
being-
apologize for the pun.
Yeah, was being manipulated by outside sources who used... So essentially, the force was wielding Vader like a sock puppet.
It's true. It was the midichlorians.
Oh, that's fair.
It was the wills within the midichlorians manipulating him. So it was
Yeah.
George.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Because as we already established,
So-
George is the one manipulating the wills.
That
That's
is
right.
super stupid.
George is the source of all.
He's the source of all evil in the Star Wars universe. Well, I mean...
That's a theory I can get behind.
Okay, here we go. This is a good one, and one of the more well-reasoned ones, but it still doesn't hold any water. Like, I think more thought went into this one in trying to make it plausible, but it just didn't work. Jar Jar is a Sith Lord.
Okay, please explain this one to me, because I've seen it around. I took one look at it and went, well, that looks stupid. I'm not going to touch that.
Except Liam Neeson confirmed it.
Oh, I'm sure he's an authority on that.
Of course he is. He's Qui-Gon, man. He's Liam freaking Neeson.
Yeah, well, Samuel L. Jackson confirmed that it's not true, and we've already established that he's better than Liam Neeson.
Did he?
Yeah, he beat Qui-Gon.
No,
No,
but I mean,
that's
like,
right. Qui-Gon did beat him. My bad. Never mind.
But
Qui-Gon trumps.
Samuel confirmed that Jar Jar wasn't? I don't remember hearing that.
that
You're
was
making things
completely-
up.
I was making
Chris.
things up.
So, I looked for the original version of this theory that was actually, like, on Reddit and stuff. So, oh my gosh, this theory is so terrible.
But to be honest, really funny.
It is.
I enjoy
Well,
hearing
which
it.
is one of those that probably started as a
Yeah.
joke.
We're going to read this whole thing. Okay, so just
Okay.
bear with me a
Okay.
minute. Okay?
Buckling in.
Sit back.
Okay.
Yeah. Here I will seek to establish that Jar Jar
God.
Binks... Yeah. We made it not one sentence in.
I'm sorry. I wasn't.
Chris was not prepared.
I was not prepared for. Here I will seek to establish. I did not
sorry,
realize
this is
we
not
were
a
in
college term
I did not
paper.
realize that we were in that level of class here.
It's serious. Here I will seek to establish that Jar Jar Binks, far from being simply the bumbling idiot he portrays himself as, is in fact a highly skilled Force user in terms of martial ability and mind control. Furthermore, I assume... Are you all wearing your tinfoil hats, by the way? Because I feel like this is appropriate attire here. Just put on your tinfoil hats before we continue. Furthermore, I assert that he was not, as many people assume, just an unwitting political tool manipulated by Palpatine. Rather, he and Palpatine were likely in collaboration from the very beginning. And it's entirely possible that Palpatine was a subordinate underling to Binks throughout both trilogies. And finally, given the above, I will conclude with an argument as to why I believe it is not only possible, but plausible that Jar Jar will make a profound impact on the upcoming movies and what his role may be. So this was written...
I think, yeah, this predates the sequel trilogy.
No, I don't.
At least I remember hearing about it before the sequel started coming out.
So first, let's establish Jar Jar as a skilled warrior. Yeah. While this does not in itself necessitate a connection with the physical force, it is highly suggestive in the Star Wars universe. Very rarely do we see normal characters exhibiting extraordinary stunt work or physical feats unless they are a Jedi, Sith, or at least Force sensitive, unless your name is Jyn Erso. Sorry, that was...
Yeah, did you... Okay.
Yeah. So here's Jar Jar nonchalantly executing a standing 20-foot twisting somersault, and it's got a link to the clip where he walks to the edge of the lake and he jumps up and...
To be fair, that is a pretty impressive somersault.
It is a pretty impressive somersault. Now, taken out of context, if you were watching a Star Wars movie and saw a character casually execute this maneuver, you'd probably assume it was a Jedi. In the context of Jar Jar, though, we don't, because elsewhere he so thoroughly convinces us that he's nothing more than a harmless dunce with his inane dialogue and cowardly lion act. He also manages to convince us that he's a bumbling oaf in the midst of pitched battle, even though he's always incredibly, amazingly successful. Whether single-handedly taking down a battle droid tank, or unleashing a barrage of Boombas on their front lines, or precisely targeting multiple enemies with a blaster tangled around his ankle, we simply roll our eyes and attribute it to dumb luck. Or, as Chris has pointed out, absolutely terrible writing by George Lucas. But is it?
Yes.
Oh. Ooh. Obi-Wan warned us otherwise. This is one of the main... I'm going to have to go... We're going to have to pause. I don't even know what this is talking about.
Is that when he called him a pathetic life?
Oh, old Obi-Wan, Alec Guinness, episode 4. There's no such... In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty. This is one of the main reasons we, as an audience, hate Jar Jar so thoroughly. He breaks the fourth wall. He shatters our suspension of disbelief because we know that no one is really that lucky. And no, he doesn't break the fourth wall.
I was going to say, that's not... That whoever wrote this doesn't know what breaking the fourth wall means.
Yeah.
Breaking the fourth wall means knowingly acknowledging the fact that this is a work of fiction within the work of fiction, thereby breaking the wall between the audience and the stage.
Yeah.
And Jar Jar at no time does that.
Nobody in any Star Wars property directly does that I have ever seen. Star Wars has avoided that pretty harshly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we know that no one is really that lucky. We dismiss it as a lame, cliched trope, the silly, pathetic oaf who always seems to inadvertently save the day. I don't know that that's necessarily a trope, but...
I would argue that, yeah, sure it is. It's in things like Buck Rogers and stuff, which this is Star Wars is specifically drawing from.
Okay.
So...
I posit that instead this is a deliberate facade on the part of Jar Jar as a character and on the part of writers and animators. As we know, the Jedi themselves are inspired by Shaolin monks, and there's a particular kung fu discipline that Jar Jar's physicality is purposefully modeled upon, which allows him to appear goofy and uncoordinated, even as he lays waste to his enemies, namely Zhui Quan, or Drunken Fist Wushu. This, or Drunken Master D&D class.
Yeah.
This discipline seeks to imitate the sloshing, seemingly random foibles of a drunkard, but in reality the staggering and stumbling is the use of bodily momentum, deception, and unpredictability intended to lure and confuse opponents. Let's take a look at Jar Jar displaying some of Wushu. The comparison clips are taken from an instructional Zhui Quan video. So Jar Jar kipping up, I'm not sure what that is. Jar Jar sloshing, Jar Jar sweeps the leg. So he's got clips, links to each of these. Jar Jar being clumsy, and then the actual martial artist doing similar things. And it's like, sure, they're similar, and we know that the martial artist is doing it on purpose because they're trained to do that, but and this is one of those theories, by the way, that just blanket statement, there's no evidence that I see for any of this. This is somebody clearly pulling stuff out.
Feels like somebody making a very elaborate joke.
There are only a handful of ways for a bipedal creature to trip another bipedal creature. That's going to probably look the same a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So,
if you slow down the above GIF, you'll notice how Jar Jar dodges an incoming blaster shot at the very beginning. You'll also notice how he's mysteriously aware of the droid decoys that appears behind him, even though it isn't in his line of sight. And he couldn't possibly hear it, right, with those giant ears of his, over the din of battle. He couldn't hear in the din of battle with giant ears.
A very unique sound.
3 feet behind him.
Yeah.
Right, there's no way. No way. Jar Jar centering himself in preparation for a force jump, and then the Zhui Quan comparison. Okay, that's all well and good, but even if Jar Jar is a secret drunken fist boxing master, that doesn't make him a force user, right? Well, it should at least make us suspicious of his character, period. It establishes that his over-the-top childish antics are a veneer masking a more complex character than we're led to believe, but even if you choose to ignore Jar Jar's seemingly magical prescience in battle, I believe there is a particular scene in which we do see him clearly make use of the physical force. This one is so good. In The Phantom Menace, where Jar Jar and the Jedi ambush the droids and rescue the Queen and her entourage, Jar Jar accidentally botches his leap from the balcony. A few frames later, he is seen dropping from the opposite side of the balcony, which would seem to be quite impossible without a Force-assisted jump and or a Force burn of some kind. Let's take a look at the full scene, and there's a link. Right, because things like continuity in movies never, ever, ever are mistaken, ever.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
And since they never, ever make continuity errors
Jar Jar
ever in
somehow used the
Hollywood...
Force to move from dangling from one window to move to dangling from another window.
other
Correct.
Because that's such an advantageous swap.
Yeah. Note that as they sneak up, Jar Jar is just as effortlessly stealthy as his Jedi counterparts. Interesting. Now, I know, right? Now, as I said, we see Jar Jar catch hold of the balcony on the far right, but then he drops to the ground on the far left. Easy to dismiss as a continuity or framing error, I suppose. Except that one of the droids continues to fire on Jar Jar's initial position, even as we see him drop out elsewhere. Right. Because continuity errors never happen. So, here it is in slow motion. See the droid that comes charging up right behind the one Qui-Gon chops down? What's he shooting at up there? And see its head swinging back towards Jar Jar's new position after the shot? You can also see another droid behind it, tracking Jar Jar with its head and manage a shot on the new position. That means that means that the animators knew very well where Jar Jar was supposed to be dangling it from the balcony over Qui-Gon's left shoulder, and purposely animate the droids tracking his inexplicably fast movement elsewhere. Okay, remember how in, I think it's Bambi, at the beginning, there's like a mama raccoon licking one of her things.
But I'll take your word for
Okay,
it.
well, it's an interesting. It's one of the early continuity errors in Disney. There's this mama raccoon. There's like a whole bunch of babies, and this mama raccoon is like licking them, cleaning them off, and then it disappears, and then it just walks off like with its other babies. Clearly, what happened is somebody forgot to like carry the baby over. The next animator comes in the next day, somebody who wasn't working on it, and is like, okay, why is this raccoon standing here with nothing on it? Okay, I'm going to have him walk over here. Okay, there it is. I see something very similar happening here. That you have some animators going, okay, Jar Jar was up here, or we were told he's going to be up on the balcony. Okay, I'm going to hurry and get this droid up there. I'm going to make it look like he's shooting, doing all this.
And the assumption there is these droids are shooting in this direction, so therefore they must have seen him move over there. And it's like, yeah, it's not like, say this movie contains a really long lightsaber fight that has specifically been criticized for the fact that these people are swinging their lightsabers at each other's lightsabers and above each other's heads instead of actually striking for any vulnerable spot, because they've created this elaborate dance and not an actual fight.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like the people designing this were that concerned with making their shooting or attacks accurate.
And even his point of the droid looking from left to right or looking from where Jar Jar should be to where he is, that one, they love to put those little head bobs from side to side for those droids all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Every droid you see speaking does it.
It's like I said in another episode, in puppetry, when you have a puppet that is making weird movements that have nothing to do with anything logical, it is called Jar Jarring. This is the movie that invented the term that is now used for that.
Yep.
And it was not limited to Jar Jar.
I'm going to skip down a little bit because he goes on for this whole Jar Jar's diverting their attention by switching balconies, blah, blah, blah. In addition to
However,
this kind...
I will say that I like the mental image of Jar Jar suddenly just going all like... and scuttling along the side of this balcony while nobody down below is looking. And all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what the freak, Jar Jar?
Wait, does Jar Jar have a reflection?
Yeah. In addition to this kind of highly suspicious physical luck, quote unquote, I also believe that we're given enough clues to justifiably suspect that Jar Jar is also... Oh, this is bolded, by the way. Bold. Jar Jar is also a master of Jedi mind control.
Jar Jar is also a master of Jedi mind control.
Thank you, Chris. I'm actually pretty sure that's exactly how the person sounded when they were typing this up. Consider.
I'm pretty sure they sounded like, Jar Jar is actually a master of...
Yeah, Jar Jar's the master of Jedi mind control?
Again, listeners, you missed the imaginary glasses push up to
No,
the
guys,
nose.
I'm serious. He's the master of mind control. Use the Force to jump to different balconies and... oh, boy.
You do that a little too well, Kylie.
Hey, practice doing different voices, you know. Hey, consider... Hey,
Just say,
continue this
continue.
argument
Yeah,
later.
go on.
Anyway, consider, we hate the way Jar Jar influences major plot points for the same reason we hate his physicality. It messes with our sense of realism. 2 experienced Jedi on a serious mission would never actually bring someone that stupid along with them. Correct. Which is a why it's
bad
poorly
writing,
written.
yes.
No character that idiotic would ever really be made a general. Yes, I agree with you. It's bad writing by George Lucas. They certainly wouldn't be made a senator. Right, bad writing by George Lucas.
Technically, he was a representative, not a senator. Anyway.
You're right.
Representative
Yeah,
Binks,
Representative Binks. You're right. Even throughout the Clone Wars. Yep. How could anyone? Oh, his theory's busted. He got the one
Well, I
detail
mean,
wrong.
I will say,
Yeah.
still wouldn't be made a
Yeah, I
representative.
know.
either.
They certainly wouldn't
They
be
made
made
him
a
a
senator.
representative to get him off planet. So he wouldn't
Yeah, I was
for
gonna say,
real.
yeah, no, that's
Get
actually
rid of him. How could anyone like Jar Jar really convince an entire galaxy to abandon democracy? That's ridiculous. These things are just the political versions of his physical luck. Inadvertent, seemingly comical bumbling is that just so happens to result in astoundingly positive results. But what if it isn't inadvertent, and what if Jar Jar's meteoric rise in inexplicable influence isn't the result of dumb happenstance, but the result of extensive and careful use of Force mind powers?
Or bad writing.
Or bad writing. It's
Maybe-
one of those two, I'm
maybe
pretty
it's bad
sure.
writing.
Yeah. Jedi and presumably Sith exhibit telltale signs when using the mind trick to implant suggestions or influence behavior, right? What do, right? It's the hand wave, right?
Yes.
These aren't the droids you're looking for, right? For one, they always gesticulate, that's what that is, and not so subtly wave their hands at the target. Here's some pivotal Jar Jar moments during his political career. Jar Jar hand-waving his way towards a promotion to Bombad General. Jar Jar hand-waving his way towards a promotion to the Senate. Jar Jar using force persuasion as he hand-waves the entire Galactic Senate and ushers in the death of democracy.
And things more similar
So-
to jazz hands, let's be honest, than for
All three of those, he's got links to these, and you can go watch them, and you'll clearly see that it is just a person moving their hands around as they're talking.
Yeah.
Particularly the Jar Jar using force persuasion as he hand-waves the entire Galactic Senate. Let's just be real here. They are stating that Jar Jar is powerful enough with force powers that he can Jedi mind trick thousands of senators.
Now, granted, they are all politicians, so
True.
thousands of people, probably like 250 brains. But
But still. And that scene is, he's got both hands raised, they're open, he's not doing any of the Jedi, finger curling, he does his, whoops. Sorry, Jess, if I make noise. Oh, you listeners, I have to apologize constantly. I'm constantly, getting in the way of my own microphone. It's a load of bunk. We'll be sure to post a link to this particular theory.
Yeah.
So you can go and have your brain melted. Actually, if you watch the prequels with the idea that Jar Jar might be a manipulative dark character, you begin to notice just how insidious and subtle his manipulation is, and how effective in almost every sequence he's involved in, how hyper aware of the overarching plot he really is. Oh man, it goes on for, I'm not even done with there's probably twice as much to go still.
it's
more of
with
that,
these sort of
though.
things. I'm like, yeah, this is 99% a joke. Somebody the kind of humor where it's it becomes funny because you are going to such absurd lengths and to be serious about it, and I get that. So I'm okay with that from that perspective. I mean, sometime we'll discuss my unifying theory of musical magic in movie musicals, because it's a doozy and it fits basically every musical I've ever come across, and I love it.
I'm excited.
And I'm totally gonna write a story someday where I get to establish this as how music magic works. But yeah, it's mainly fun because it's absurd.
Oh man, I've got a fan theory from Twitter here.
I will clarify real quick. Looking at that post on Reddit you were just reading, it was posted October 30th, 2015. So this does predate the sequel.
There we go. Still terrible though. Still makes no sense. So we asked people on Twitter to give us their worst fan theories. What have they heard? What do they want to hear us talk about? Ryan Farron.
Yes.
He said, I think they will reveal that 789 was just an afterlife dream. They will realize that they all died during the Battle of Endor. Luke didn't make it off the Death Star in time. Han died blowing up the shield generator. Leia succumbed to her blaster wounds. And I say, why not, man?
No, because
He's clearly just being silly and coming
Yeah.
up with something ridiculous for us. But
Because-
honestly, why not? Compared to some of these fan theories, that actually makes more sense.
because the Princess Bride book actually did this, and it was terrible.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
I thought I'd read the book.
There are a couple different versions, but because like the one that I read like stopped at where the movie stops, and then there's like an editor's note that was like, so by the way, the original manuscript has what follows in it, but
nobody likes it, so here you go.
Well, yeah, they dropped it off of the movie, and if you want to see why, like, go ahead and read it or something like that, because like everyone just like it just was terrible because like Wesley relapses and in death. Inigo's wounds open and he dies. I think Fezzik like falls off a cliff or something, or Buttercup falls off a cliff. I don't know. Everyone dies in the last chapter.
At the end of the book.
Yeah.
It's part of the joke that the book is set up as the abridged version of this old book written by S. Morgenstern that the author that William Goldman found and then wrote an abridged version because his grandfather used to read this to him, and he never realized when he was growing up that his grandfather had been abridging the content of this book as he went to skip the boring parts and stuff. And that's where they got the movie idea to have the grandfather narrating it to the grandson. But yeah, that's at the end. He's like, yeah, and that he's like, it basically gets to the end and is like, and they ride off into the sunset. And I suggest you stop here if that's where you like this. But I was very shocked to discover that there is actually one more line after that my grandfather never read to me. And it's like until Wesley had a relapse and Inigo's wound opened up again and Fezzik got lost or Buttercup got lost and Fezzik and it was.
The next fan theory was a YouTube video, so there's nothing for us to read. But basically, Snoke was a force projection the whole time. Bum, bum, bum. So he's not actually dead, or maybe wasn't there all along. Totally stupid. Of course he was there.
It's a long time to hold up a projection of your dismembered body.
Right? Yeah.
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 And you also very accurately recreated the wounds you would have taken.
And also, maintaining that they're just in time for Hux to walk in and find it.
Yeah, it
pretty
makes no sense. You're stupid.
And also, he apparently is capable of shooting force lightning from his force projection.
Yes.
Because he does that in there.
Yeah. Palpatine created Anakin.
So I added this as we were sitting here recording the episode.
Technically, what you added here is Palestine created Anakin, but
which
I actually like that theory.
Technically, what he added was Palestine created a Nikon.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. Thanks, autocorrect. I guess I need to get the Star Wars version of the iPhone. Several episodes ago, I did have a little bit of rant about how dumb it was that there was a theory that Palpatine created Anakin.
And that has since become official canon in the comics.
Yeah, within like a week, that issue released, and I, of course, had to eat my words because I think I made some
I
claims.
actually liked how they set that up in the comic, personally.
I think it works better in the comic than what the fan theory was.
Yes.
Well, and actually, because there was also a discussion about how, like, it was Palpatine and Plagueis that were experimenting with the midichlorians, and then the Force, in spite, made an actual version of the Force somewhere else to take. That was the original theory. Ugh. And then, but this new one is actually, Palpatine did find Shmi Skywalker and cause the Force to conceive Anakin. Okay.
But basically the idea was that they were in like this Force, they were so deep in the Force that they're in like this out-of-body experience and are messing with the Force and don't really quite understand what they've done. And so it wasn't that they knew what, that they just left Anakin on Tatooine or put it out there. It's just that they messed with the Force, accidentally created life, and weren't even convinced that they had done that until years later Palpatine meets Anakin and here's the story about him and goes, wait, what? Wait, what?
Well, is that the way the comic is reading it as well? Because I haven't read that issue.
Yeah, I looked at that. We have that in the library now.
Actually.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Because originally, it was Dooku walked up to Palpatine when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan get back from Tatooine, and Dooku's kind of updating him on what's happening.
There's like a Force. Basically, Vader goes into
in the original way that the theory was.
So what it is now is it's like Vader's castle or something like that. But this latest compilation, it's the last 6 issues or whatever of Vader. It's Vader's castle construction on Mustafar that we see in Rogue One, his big, tall, pointy temple thing. It's built over like a dark side nexus kind of a thing, so he can like tap into like ultra powers of the dark side or whatever. So Vader goes in there into this like nexus or whatever and like sees kind of into the 5th dimension or whatever through the Force and like sees like flashbacks of his life and whatever. And including like his conception, and sees like Palpatine
creeping out over his mom.
as like a Force ghost, basically. So it's all weird and mystical, and that's why I'm saying it may not.
Yeah, it's not even
be a
100%
thing,
that's what
because
they're establishing. But.
Vader is having a Force vision that is highly mystical, like, and uncertain in its very nature. And in this Force vision, he sees a Force projection ghost thing that's all swirly and cloudy over his mother's shoulder, and she's got a pregnant belly.
Because I thought the panel, it was drawn very much like the Emperor.
It is.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is this is all taking place in a Force vision, and yes, you can tell it's the Emperor. They're not making any secret about that, but like his edges are kind of swirly, like it's a Force misty hooty booty, whatever. And his mom already has like a 9-month pregnant belly.
Yeah.
And so it's like
weird.
it's all kind of weird, wishy-washy Force hoodoo.
So then is it confirmed or isn't it?
The people who like this theory have confirmed it.
See,
I'm
the funny
sitting
one
here
for me
going,
is-
I don't know that there's enough evidence to say the Emperor maybe had some sort of manipulation. Okay, maybe. But the dark side is also lying and deceitful. So
the sun has just gotten a little brighter for me.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
So the funny thing for me is that was one of those things where I was like, it wasn't until you brought it up that I was like, well, that's not a theory. Like, that's not subtext. It's basically just text. It's that, and I'd never even thought of it as not being obvious, clear implication of all that.
But see, that's the thing, is that it all hinges around Palpatine in the Opera House going, created life, wink, wink. When there's no real wink, wink, and it very well could just be Ian McDermott's dramatic interpretation of how to say those lines, See, that's the way I'd always take it.
That's fair.
He's just trying to give it dramatic flair, because that is a surprising thing for the Force to do. So you give it verbal emphasis, right?
I'd always just taken it as Palpatine just straight up lying to Anakin, being like, "Oh, the Force can do all kinds of stuff, man."
Well, that would make
Why don't you come
sense.
join me?
That would make sense if
You know?
Anakin made any sort of connection there. But yeah, I mean, there would be no the specificity of using the Force to create life, and not just because what Anakin's interested in is extending life, preserving, or etc. Whereas, so for Palpatine to be that specific with, oh, well, I can create, the Darth Plagueis could create life. It's like, well, that's nice. So,
Yeah. So what? Yeah.
Yeah.
But also that theory also hinges around a lot of happy accidents happening.
Yeah.
Right? Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan just happened to land on Tatooine in the settlement that he's in, of the same place that the Emperor had just happened to find this woman. There are just way too many coincidences for me. Yes, you can say, okay, will of the Force, whatever.
Well, I'm just kind of like, there was a prophecy about the Chosen One, like Palpatine, like it's prophecy, dude. Prophecy happens in these things.
It makes more sense to me if it is a will of the Force from start to beginning, rather than...
that makes perfect sense to me, though.
Well, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Rather than Palpatine starts something and then the will of the Force takes it from him.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, this was Palpatine and Plagueis operating, like, fulfilling the will of the Force unknowingly. Like, it's a classic, it's the opposite of the hero creates their own villain sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the villains create their own heroes. And that's just sort of the implication there, is that they were messing around with the Force and that they accidentally created life, and that was part of the prophecy. This was supposed to come.
You know what it is for me? This is my midi-chlorians. It's trying to explain the magic behind the Force.
Yeah.
Right? It's trying to give a science to it. Which
don't
I think
feel
is the
like
reason why I
that's
don't
the
like
case.
it. Because it's Palpatine and Plagueis physically ironing and
No,
manufacturing this child.
for
Well,
me,
but it's not any dumber than her getting magically pregnant divine.
See, and that
birth
was the
by
thing
the
for
Force.
me, is the awkwardness of, oh, he's Space Jesus in Phantom Menace never left a solid taste on my tongue, a pleasant taste on my tongue, and then to have this upending reveal in number 3 that it's like, you thought we were setting this up as Space Jesus, and actually no, it was the bad guys that did this and set all this in motion, and that for me was a like, oh, well, that's a completely different thing that we're seeing here, and I like that a lot more.
But I would feel like if that was the intent, that they would have put more evidence in the movie.
I just don't like any of it.
Because all we have to make that true is
Because it doesn't matter
Ian
to the
McDermott's
plot.
wink, wink.
It doesn't matter to the plot, though. Like, it's not something that needs a lot of time. It gets about as much time as there was no father in the first one. Boom, done. Moving on.
Still.
Anyway,
Yep.
Apparently that is my crappy fan theory, but I do have one or two more.
And you're dumb, Chris.
I am aware.
You and your fan
This
theory.
is one from The Force Awakens. In the opening crawl, there's a point where it mentioned a mention of Leia and her brother Luke, which is written her brother Luke with no punctuation, which should actually be written as her brother, comma, Luke.
Right.
And this fan theory, because of the missing comma, it implies when you don't have that comma that there is more than one brother that needs distinguishing between. And therefore, the fan theory was that maybe there's another Skywalker brother that this was clarifying between, which is really dumb.
Stop it.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that Padme wasn't having twins, she was actually having triplets?
Well, maybe Anakin got around or Padme got around. Who knows?
I think if
dirty
Padme
slut,
got around, it
Anakin.
wouldn't
Yeah, man.
Skywalker anymore.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, and then there was... then the people getting outraged about the little kid at the end of The Last Jedi, where they're like, oh, so what? Now the entire next movie's going to be about this random kid? There are people out there that actually sincerely believe that. And for those poor misguided souls, I just want to let you know, you are stupid. I'm sorry. That must be very difficult, walking around like that all the time. That is the point of Jar Jar. It's a very well designed and carefully constructed caution against stupidity. Sure, makes more sense than Jar Jar as a Darth Jar Jar.
It's so bad.
But yeah, so no. This kid is there because he represents what Star Wars is for all of us, inspiring a new generation. Blah 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 blah. It has nothing to do with this kid becoming a central figure in Star Wars from here on out. Though, I will say that the way the extended universes of these things are generally built,
this kid is going to
inevitably,
get like 14
someday
movies
this kid
for
is going to
himself,
get a whole bunch of crap.
Yeah.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised, like speaking of that kid specifically, I wouldn't be surprised to see him as a new Padawan in Rey's new Jedi Academy.
Yes, if that's a thing that is going on.
Like I can
But
see that.
but the fact of the
happening,
matter is,
yeah,
we've had a trilogy focused on Rey, Poe, Finn, and Hux and Kylo and the original, the Han, Luke, and Leia, and then adding in Rose in the next one, taking out some of the aforementions, and we're not going to go far afield from that. Like, that is the crux of our trilogy. We're not going anywhere else with anything else. Because it would be bad writing, and J.J. Abrams is more competent than that. Oh, and also, special shout out to all of the fan theories out there, the media frenzy of just desperately trying to grab anything that would indicate that Lucasfilm is unhappy with the performance of The Last Jedi. We discussed that in our last episode, and that is also some fan theorizing.
those are fan theories
it
I
is.
can subscribe to. Oh man. Well, I think that's probably enough self-torture for today.
I could use less. Yeah, I could be done with that.
Oh my goodness, I'm exhausted after that. Well, we hope you enjoyed listening to us rant, and we hope you got frothy with your own rage at the dumb fan theories that are out there.
And not at us for
And
dismissing
not-
your pet theory.
I don't even care if you get mad at it. I would love if you are mad at me for dismissing your fan theory. Let me hear about it on Twitter at More Civilized or in our Facebook group, A More Civilized Podcast. You like that segue?
Nice
That was so
transition.
That
good.
was a good transition. Yeah. That was smooth.
Slightly made less smooth by the whole calling attention to it, but
Well, we're just adequate.
Yeah, you have to bring it back down, you know? Yeah.
I just
you
bring
can-
balance to the force. For every good thing I do, I got to bring it back
we
down.
have to bring us back to adequacy.
That's right. We in fact are graced by a gray Kyler.
Don't you dare! Don't you dare go there, Ross.
Yeah. I sure did.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, and you know what? Just because it's been on my mind, because when we got through that episode those episodes of Rebels again, the Bendu is less what Grey Jedi should be defined as. Because he was much more your definition of Grey Jedi, where he had to be one thing or the other, right? Had to balance all things, which is less what I was arguing for. Anyway, just, had to print my own retraction. You can speak with me on Twitter at Mr_R_star. And this week we would like to draw your attention specifically to a post on Facebook by my my sister Lindsay. I was going to put, should I say favorite? Should I not? Will that cause family drama? I don't know.
Favorite sister Lindsay.
Yep. Who is a very avid supporter of our of our Facebook group.
We can say without any family drama that Ross is her favorite brother.
Yes, yes, absolutely. She added to our John Williams episode by giving us some of the other samples that John Williams
that's right.
inspired.
I did
the
see that.
coffee of there.
So please go give those a listen, and you can see some of the other inspirations from
And
the Star Wars
they're
music.
really nice music too, just to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Cool. And if you have anything you want to hear us talk about, any ideas for episodes, anything you'd like to hear more of or less of, further expounding upon, deeper digging into, please let us know. Facebook, Twitter, anywhere. Send us an email. We do have an email.
We do.
It's a more
civilized podcast
at gmail.com.
Yeah.
So hey, send us email if you want. We might look at that someday. And
I get in there occasionally.
About once a quarter.
look at these guys being responsible.
Don't expect a response quickly. Is all we're saying.
But get in there. Let us know what you want to hear about, because we are more than happy to pander to you.
Yep. And hey, may the force be with you.
Always.
I'm Anna Graves, and thank you for listening to a more civilized podcast.
Is this America or not? Like, come on!
I'm a homebody, but you need to get out more.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely.
No.
I got that one. I got
Ross is punting for us.
That's me.
This is great.
You're
Ross,
doing
high
it,
five.
Peter.
In addition to
However,
this kind,
I will say that I like the mental image of Jar Jar suddenly just going all like and scuttling along the side of this balcony while nobody down below is looking.
We in fact are graced by a gray Kyler.
don't you dare! Don't you dare go there, Ross.
Yeah, I sure did.